This Protoman review is brought to you by Big Bad Toy Store. Big Bad Toy Store, the ultimate in toys.
Now, a few months ago, I did a little review of a book called Covenant of Primus, which was a really well done book that chronicled the origin of the original Transformers, and it splits off into the Prime continuity and the Beast Wars continuity halfway. Depends how you want to look at it. One complaint that I had about the book was it was missing art from very key moments within the original 13 story, and little things here and there that were featured in the Prime cartoon. Now, to answer that, a new book came out, Transformers: The Art of Prime. And this, I feel, is a really good sequel book to pick up to the Covenant of Primus. And I'm going to go through all the little interesting things about this book. So let's check that out.
ProtoRetro.
Now, The Art of Prime is a glorious book that was put together primarily from two major sources. Jose Lopez, who is the art director and one of the primary character designers and prop designers of Transformers Prime, and Augusto Branco, if I'm saying that correctly, who's also one of the head character designers and concept designers. And Jose, he originally worked on stuff like Green Lantern, First Flight, and The Batman, where Augusto, he originally worked on Revenge of the Fallen. So these were two guys that had a really good background in science fiction, and in the case of Augusto, Transformers fiction itself. And so these two guys really infused a lot of life into the Prime brand and gave birth to a book that has just amazing stuff in it. And this, honestly, this is a must-have pickup book. Not even if you're a Transformers Prime fan, but just a Transformer fan in general, because of just how much is infused in it. And Jose himself, specifically in this book, really talks about how he really thought about G1 when putting a lot into these characters. I'm just going to go through the stuff that you get in this book, the chapters and everything, and I'm going to post little highlights of stuff that I really enjoyed too, especially. There's a foreword by Peter Cullen in this book, so that's a nice little, extra. And it's not a big foreword, but it's a nice little touch that Peter made an effort to give his little regards to this amazing art book that's put together. Now, it's divided essentially into two parts. The first part is characters and stuff like that, and the second part is more scenery. And then it's broken into different chapters. So obviously, the first chapter being Autobots. Now, this book, no stone is unturned. Everything from Transformers Prime is in this. Every single season, even right up to the Predacons Rising movie. So nothing is left out. That being said, there is certain things that would have been nice put into it, but we'll get to that when I get to those characters and whatnot. So you have, I'm going to just go through this quickly and I'll post images of certain ones. You have Optimus Prime. They go really into detail with Optimus Prime. They even show some of the BotCon slides that we saw way back, and I believe it was 2010, showing like, here's what we thought Transformers Prime was going to look like with the concept designs. That's where Augusto comes in, because he did a lot of concepts and everything. They showcase transformations, the insides of cockpits and stuff, really detailed stuff that just you didn't see in the show. Then they went to Optimus Prime 2.0, also known as the Beast Hunters Prime, which is the more buff one. And you get a lot of comments by Jose, who was primarily in charge of the character designs, and what he was thinking about when he was doing each character and colors and everything. And they even bring in the Orion Pax design, which was more of a Cybertronian look. We move on to RC, and I mean, RC, it's a no-brainer, about her. And they just show everything, really. And then you go to Bulkhead, and again, they show interiors, they show targeting readouts and all kinds of stuff. They go to Bumblebee 2.0 for Beast Hunters. Then you have Ratchet, and you have Cliff Jumper. And the interesting thing about Cliff Jumper, what they mentioned, was that he was going to be a concept, small little car, very similar to his G1 counterpart, until they found out that The Rock was going to be voicing him. And then they went back and scrapped that, went for the more muscle car kind of thing with the Brahma Bull on the front and the horns. The zombie Cliff Jumper, Wheeljack, Smokescreen. Like, it's just, and they show, again, the one thing I have to emphasize, they show a lot of concepts of how they developed the character to the final design. So Smokescreen had a lot of interesting, ideas before they got to the final design. Smokescreen 2.0, which is his recolor for Beast Hunters, which is more G1 accurate in terms of colors. Alpha Trion, good old Ultra Magnus, and then you get some interviews by David Hartman. David Hartman was the supervising director for the show, and he pretty much talks about how he got into the brand and how art really had a huge influence on how the story was. And that's a very interesting take, because usually a lot of times artists don't have a big influence on how the fiction plays out, but he talks about how that was the case. And that was one of the amazing things about Transformers Prime, was that the artists really had a pull on where things were going. And considering that a lot of the artists were fans of the original show back in 84, 85, 86, it's really interesting to hear that. Chapter 2, Decepticons. Obviously you get Megatron, and then a really appreciated part of the chapter is Megatron 2.0, which is the Unicron-infused Megatron, which it's nice to see a lot more detailed looks at that design specifically. You have Starscream, of course, and then you have Soundwave, and Soundwave is one of those characters that was very bland, but there was a lot of details in him because of his laser beak and everything like that. You had Arachnid, and an interesting thing that Jose Lopez talked about with Arachnid was that she was actually a homage to Maleficent from Beauty and the Beast. So think about that for a second. It's kind of interesting. Knockout with all his different, hand gadgets and stuff. Breakdown. Now, Breakdown is one of those characters because he went through a design transformation a few times in the show because of, hooking up with Silas and stuff. So they really show that in big detail. Dreadwing and alternatively Skyquake, because they're just palette swaps of each other, more or less. But just really nice to have both of them really fleshed out. An interesting character that I feel was really wasted in the series as time progressed. Shockwave, again, a personal favorite of mine, always one of my favorite Decepticons. A wasted section, in my opinion. Unicron, I feel he had a section, but it was only one page and there wasn't much shown, and it's actually just a matte painting concept by Augusto, which is a shame because there was so much more to Unicron in Prime, and I really would have liked that they showed a lot more, but I guess, I don't know, it's weird that they shortchanged him there. You have the Terracons, you have the Viacons, all their variants, you have the Insecticons, and of course, Bombshell and his, variations of stuff. The Predacons, obviously the fossil ones, leading into Predaking, and then of course Darksteel and Skylynx, which were used in the Predacon Rising movie. And then you get more interviews. You get an interview with George Lopez where he fleshes out, his history, how he got into the brand, his favorite characters and stuff like that. Chapter 3 is the humans and the props. Now obviously some people might be too, they might skip over this chapter, but you get some very Disney-esque reaction faces and showing Miko and her process of how she was created, and just really cool stuff. And of course within that prop section you get stuff that was really not focused on in the show, but like in Arachnid's ship she had all those alien trophies that because she would, it was kind of like a bounty hunter. And so you get those individually fleshed out and shown very well. A lot of the Cybertronian relics, whether it be the Apex armor or the phase shifter, all of that stuff is focused on. Silas, and of course with Mech, you get all of that stuff focused on. Really cool stuff, especially that, because I like it when stuff focuses on the Cybertronian relics, and it's something that you kind of want to have a list of what exists and how it looks, so it's really cool to have that in a book. Part 2 now goes to backgrounds and sets, and usually that would be the more boring part of an art book, but in this case there's a lot of really interesting things they did to make it not the boring part, just backgrounds and stuff, where because it was a CG show, these environments are actually, they're like stages of a level, and so they actually gave us the pulled back views of a lot of these stages. And Vince Toyama was in charge of that. He was the production designer who pretty much did those backgrounds and stuff. So they really go through it. And so obviously the first chapter of part 2, which is chapter 4, is Earth. And they give this amazing shot of like all of Jack's town, more or less, like a back shot of like the entire town and how the show was used within that stage. So you could see like the burger joint and and just where he would turn to go to school and stuff. It's a nice wide shot, and you could see his house and everything. So a really cool like map view, if you will, of his town. So I mean, if you're someone who wants to do like level design, you could actually make a replica of Jack's little town, city, school, and everything based on this, because you have it laid out for you. Going into obviously the Autobot secret HQ, going into again big detail of where each room led, and the main command room and stuff where Ratchet worked and everything with the space bridge, showing the destruction of it, energon mines, going to Mech and their secret hideout. And again, they give you these like bird's eye views and side views showing the entire facility. So you could, in every little detail, where'd this corridor lead, where'd this go. So when you would watch the show, and if you saw a specific corner of a shot, you know exactly where it was in this map. And you have Dark Mount, and Dark Mount wasn't fleshed out too much because of its limited time that it was shown before its destruction. But you do get a lot of really nice matte painting shots, which will be a focus later in the book too. Same thing with Unicron's core. It's kind of limited because of how little it was used in the show, but still really nice nonetheless. And then tons and tons of matte paintings of Earth. And then we go to chapter 5, which is Cybertronian locales. And so that's where you get also ships, like the Nemesis, and you get all, the Well of the Allspark, the Cybertronian planet, and just going towards the core, and you get all these beautiful, beautiful matte paintings and concepts of everything that was in the show. That was especially focused on in season 3. And just all the ships, whether it be the Iron Will, which was Ultra Magnus' ship, and just all of those are incredible. And I can't even talk about those enough because there's just so much detail for each individual one. Like you would get a ship and then you show the cockpit and all the individual panels. And again, if you're someone who obsesses over the stuff like I do, it's just really cool to stare at. And then probably one of my favorite chapters, just visually, which is part 3, which is Colors and Effects, which you would think was also, again, a pretty boring chapter, but within it is the matte paintings and the weapons and stuff like that. And this is where it's a really good sequel to the Covenant of Primus, because it opens with the Well of the Allspark, with all the original 13 around it, a image that was missing in the original book, but this one is not only is it in the book, but it's a large, super highly detailed showing of it, so you could really make out every character and stuff. And the matte painting section gives full double spreads of practically everything in great detail instead of just like a small picture of it. And the same thing with the effects and the weapons, because they show the Matrix, which is considered something in the weapon section. They really showed in big detail and explain how they went about it, whether it be the Hammer of Solus or the Star Saber, again, which are artifacts but are featured here too, and just all the colors and everything that went into it. And a lot of these are concepts, so they look absolutely gorgeous when they're done in matte painting form. And it's just, they talk about, again, there's so much original 13 stuff in here and pre-Cybertronian history, whether it be the coming of Unicron or, Megatron's first rise to power. All those matte paintings that were featured in the show is normally just for flashbacks and stuff are shown in vivid detail here. And, I can't go on enough. It's an absolutely great book, and combined with the interviews, which really flesh out and add more to it. And each individual section, each individual character has comments from George Lopez or Augusto talking about how they went about creating the character. Because every character, they always considered the original. Like George Lopez said, when they attacked doing RC, the first thing they wanted to do was not go with the original design, not go with the pink. And the irony in that is that she was used with blue and had pink accents, but when that palette is reversed, you get a prime pink with with blue, which was used with the not SDCC, with the New York Comic Con exclusive. So really great book. I heavily suggest pick it up, especially if you're someone who bought the Covenant of Primus. It is a good companion book. It adds to it and adds more visuals to stuff that was described in this show up in here. Unfortunately, you have to buy 2 books to get the visuals for something in here, but it's just a nice addition because it gives you an excuse to pick this up, because this is a great book. George Lopez, Augusto, congratulations, amazing job. Great book you two pretty much put together. Amazing. Pick it up. So this is Protoman of ProtoRetro, and this has been a review of the Transformers Art of Prime. And this is a great book. Take care, guys.